Hello and welcome to your Urban Connection. This is the channel that is often imitated but is never duplicated. And today I have the great pleasure and honor of having a special guest, and his name is Erik Murray, and he's a candidate for the U.S. Senate. Mr. Murray, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Barfield. I appreciate you having me. So good to see you.
All right, it's always good to have somebody of your stature on the show. Now,
Very
what I
kind of
would
you.
like for you to do, sir, because a lot of people, my viewers, are not familiar with you. So, what I'd like for you to do is take a minute or two and just give us a brief introduction as to who you are and why you're running for this seat.
Yes, sir. So again, my name is Erik Murray. The Eric with a K. K is for Kansas, born and raised in Kansas City, Kansas, in Wyandotte County. So I'm a native Kansan who's had the pleasure of traveling all over the world and gotten to see economic prosperity, gotten to see economic opportunity. Sadly, in too many communities like my own, I've also seen what happens when we don't invest in people and we don't invest in the infrastructure and the things that help really build community and build up our quality of life. So I'm bringing all of that experience, and you know, Mr. Barfield, I appreciate you sent me a birthday note. It was my 44th birthday this past weekend. So I'm bringing that 44 years of experience, the passion and energy that I have for Kansans and really for all Americans to be able to prosper. I see a government that is going the wrong direction. I see leaders, and apparently I use that term loosely, that are not leading with compassion, that are not leading with love, that are not leading with opportunity for everyone. And so I'm excited to bring my Kansas roots, my good Midwestern values, but also the education that I have received. Thanks to public schools, by the way. So I'm a public school kid. I went to the #1 public school in the state of Kansas, right down the road here at Sumner Academy in Kansas City, Kansas. But I've parlayed that education and hard work to be able to really get to a point where I can build community as a community developer and as a real estate developer. And seeing that our leaders are not doing that, I'm excited to go to the U.S. Senate and fight for Kansans and fight for communities like the ones all the way across the state that just haven't received their fair share of investment or economic opportunity. So I'm excited. I'm sure we'll talk more about a little bit more about my background, some of the ideas that I have. But in a nutshell, I'm a kid from the dot who thinks that all Kansans deserve better, and I'm here to be that solutions provider.
Well, you can bet we're going to get into more of that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
But here's what I want to ask you. Have you ever served in elective office prior?
I have not.
Okay.
So this will be my first foray into political office or elected office. I think that's a good thing. And, you know, as I look around, one of the things that I'm very passionate about is term limits. And I
Mhm.
think that we need to create opportunities for future generations and for the next generation. And sometimes that means passing the baton. And man, some of these leaders have been in office 30, 40, 50
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
I understand that power might be intoxicating, but I certainly think that we need to create pathways for future leaders. And so I've never been in elected office. Then the next question I get is, well, if it's your first elected office, why are you running for the U.S. Senate? And I've got a great answer to that I'm sure we'll cover. But no, sir, I have never been in elected office, and I'm excited to be a normal guy, a normal person with solutions, a businessman and a community-minded businessman, and bring that energy to Washington. We got enough career politicians in Washington. I want to be that solutions provider.
Well, we got too many, if you ask me. But
Yes, sir.
here's my next question to you, sir. Uh, having not been in office, I can understand the question about why are you running for the Senate. But
Sure.
I think you won't be the first to do so. Okay, as a matter of fact, if you remember, Ronald Reagan had never been in office when he ran for president.
That's
So
true.
that's not a factor. Now you're running in the primary. And I believe that you're one of five people. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And has the deadline for filing ended yet, or will you just be the five of you?
I do not believe that deadline is passed. There's always rumors that more folks may enter. But let me be clear. Yes, there will be a Democratic primary. I think that a primary is good. Anytime we get an opportunity to engage more voters, let's see here. Yep. All right. It's the beauty of Zoom meetings. Someone tried to pop in here on our meeting. Let me see if I can turn those notifications off. Give me 1 second, Mr. Barfield.
Okay.
Do not disturb. All right.
Yeah.
Nobody can steal our joy now.
Yeah.
All right. So there will be a Democratic primary, and I think that that's a good thing. So we got to get voters engaged and out. This election matters for all the reasons that we see right now. This election really matters. So I think a Democratic primary is good. But let me be clear. I'm focused on beating Roger Marshall in November. And I think that we have got to stay the course there. I'm fortunate to be, we believe, the front runner in this race. Of all of the candidates, the only one that's been attacked by the National Republican Senate Committee is yours truly here. So we can talk more about that here later too, if you'd like, Mr. Barfield. But
Sure.
we certainly have a deep respect for all of the other primary opponents. I want to see our party get engaged. I want us to have some important conversations. I tell people when I criticize the Democratic Party, I criticize it from a place of love, and I can do that because I've been a Democrat all my life, and there are some things that as Democrats we need to do better. So I'm
Sure.
excited for us to have this Democratic primary and have some of these conversations. But make no mistake, I'm focused on beating Roger Marshall in November, and that is what we're geared up to do. We've been traveling all over the state, meeting great folks. As you know, we've been in Wichita and in Sedgwick County several times. We're going to continue to be there and engage with folks because we just need people to know that there are better options and better leaders that want the opportunity to go to the U.S. Senate and really fight for Kansans. And the guy I'm fighting against in November, by all accounts, has not done that. So you can trust that I will. So I'm excited for the primary, but I'm even more excited for that general election.
Well, one of the things that you have in your favor is that of the four uh, opponents for the primary, only one of them has any political experience, and that's, I believe, a guy from Wellington who served on a city council. Okay, so the others are just like you, they're first timers. So that's, I think, is to your advantage. And the other day I remember somebody when I was doing the uh, teasers for this show, somebody asked me who were you running against, and I said Roger Marshall. Okay,
Yes,
and
sir.
not mentioning the primary, and then I had to go correct myself and say that you run for that seat for Roger Marshall, but there is a primary. Now I want to take a minute, sir, and I want to do something. You did a commercial back right after you announced. I believe you announced somewhere around December the 3rd, I believe it was. And you did a commercial. And I want people to see that commercial and then we'll take it from there.
Okay.
Hold on just a minute. Let me get down there. Scroll down there to it.
Perfect, though. Tell folks to go right there and learn more about our campaign. Sign up to
Yes.
volunteer. Elections cost money, so go there and donate as well.
Well, I'm trying to get that video to play. There's a video included in that, and I'm trying to get that video to play. And we certainly want to get to this part where the donation, via for that. But I want to
Appreciate
play
that.
that video right quick. Is what I
Yes,
was
sir.
going
It
to
should
do.
play. It should play right there. There we
Yeah,
go.
tried that. Oh, here we go. What happened? Didn't play.
Let's see.
I was raised here in the dot in Kansas City, Kansas, just down the street from some of the best schools in the state, but in a neighborhood left behind for decades. I'm Erik Murray, and being the underdog never scared me. So when I walked into boardrooms and no one looked like me or came from where I did, I saw it as an opportunity. I worked hard and built a multi-million-dollar company that creates good jobs and transforms communities too often forgotten. My story is what America is all about and what Trump and Roger Marshall are attacking every day. Going after public schools, gutting access to healthcare, crippling farmers, all while rigging the system for billionaires and big corporations. Trump wants an America where folks like me don't make it. I won't have it. I'm Erik Murray. I'm running for the U.S. Senate because no kid, no matter where they come from, should ever be counted out, because Kansans don't quit, and neither will I.
Okay,
All
so there
right.
you are.
I
That pretty well
appreciate,
sums it up.
yes, sir. I appreciate you playing my commercial there, but yes.
Well, now let's get to this point. You've spent quite a bit of time in Wichita and in Wyandotte, of course, your hometown, and some other cities. And, and I want to talk a little bit about, well, I'll let you sell. What basically are your main goals when you are elected?
Yeah, I think focusing on three things. And the crazy part, Mr. Barfield, is that 75 to 80% of Kansans agree on 75 to 80% of things. And the fact that our leaders go to Washington or Topeka and run their own agenda or run the president's agenda as opposed to running what Kansans really, really care about, that's the most disheartening part to me. But I think that's why we've got elections. We have an opportunity to go and change that. And so I'm running on three core principles: economic opportunity, healthcare, and education. Those things are all related. We can go in depth on each one of those things, but those three priorities are what Kansans really care about and what our leaders, I feel like, have lost sight of. So in the economic opportunity bucket, that covers everything from jobs, economic mobility, workforce development, wage growth, but also affordability. And I think we have to understand, we all know that we're in an affordability crisis. Literally, we talk about it all the time. People can't afford anything. But there's two components to that. There is, on one side, costs are going up, whether that's our local property taxes are going up. I'll talk about why, as a U.S. Senator, you wouldn't think that I can have an impact on that, but we know that we can. But everything from property taxes are going up, your insurance is going up, your car insurance, your car payment, interest rates on your credit cards, all of these costs in daily life are going up. But guess what's not going up? That's also driving the affordability crisis is wages. Kansas still has the lowest minimum wage in the country. We have not raised our minimum wage in decades. And I think that there should be a federal minimum wage so that all folks have an opportunity to really prosper and see both wage growth and costs come down. So we talk about economic opportunity as a core tenet of this campaign. We've got to make sure that we've got pathways to great paying jobs, that we've got workforce development, that we're training people up. Everybody should leave high school, whether college is for you or not. I'm fortunate that I was able to go to college. Both of my parents went to college. I think that was a very key foundational piece in my development. But for kids who don't want to go to college, or college has gotten really expensive and can't afford it, we need our kids to be able to leave high school with the skills to go off and have a great career. And we need to have workforce development programs like the ones that we've created in aviation and in other great industries here in Kansas. So economic opportunity and really hitting at both sides of affordability is an important key of our campaign. Healthcare. I'm sorry, Mr. Barfield, but in the wealthiest, most prosperous country in the world, every American should have access to healthcare. And we have got to, whether that's Medicare for all, there are ways that we can do this, but we have got to make sure that Americans have access to healthcare. Health is wealth. And you can't talk about economic opportunity, job growth, wage growth. If you're not healthy, then you can't enjoy anything else. And if we're a country that's about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that starts and ends with healthcare and having fundamental right to healthcare. Last and certainly not least, tied into that overall economy that we wish to create for all Kansans is education. As I talked about it, I'm a public school kid. I'm the kid of school teachers. My mom is a school teacher turned school administrator. My aunties, my cousins, my niece graduated from Wichita State and is a school teacher at Francis Willard Elementary in Kansas City, Kansas right now. Education is so vital to the success of our students, of our communities, and of our economy. And the fact that there are folks that want to defund education is crazy to me. And so I think those three things, if we can really invest in those three key areas, that's what the majority of Kansans and the majority of Americans agree on. Sadly, that's what our leaders in Washington has lost sight of. And those are the core responsibilities that I take to Washington as I fight for Kansans, as I fight for funding, for economic opportunity, for healthcare, for the things that Kansans know will make our quality of life better.
I'm going to touch on three things that you talked about. First of all, is the minimum wage. And you mentioned that we've not had an increase in the minimum wage for decades, or at least a decade, while at the same time, senators and congressmen and everybody have had a raise almost every other year, it seems like. Okay. Now, that's one thing. The other one I'm going to touch on is the education. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but I know that you're aware of the Department of Education was they were anti-DEI, and they were threatening schools and universities with withholding certain federal funds from them if they did not dismantle those practices. Well, last week, a judge had ruled against them on that. They appealed it, and then last week they dropped the appeal. Okay, so the judge had ruled that it was unconstitutional, and they didn't have the authority to be able to withdraw funds for that reason.
Right.
So they're doing things that are unconstitutional. They're not passing laws, they're just doing them because of an executive order that the president passed along. And, these things are being dismantled by the courts because the GOP doesn't have the guts and the backbone to do what they're supposed to do, their job, and protect us, the public. They're working for the millionaires and billionaires and these big multi-corporate companies. Now, I just want to ask you this, sir. Would you be in favor of a $15 an hour minimum wage?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is a bare minimum standard at which folks can afford to live, can put food on the table, can put a roof over their head. And as we know, I've got 4 children. If you've got children, you need to make more than that to feed these babies nowadays. And so the reality is absolutely a $15 minimum wage seems more than reasonable when corporations are making record profits, when billionaires are profiting off the back of American labor and Kansas labor, and we're not paying folks a living wage. It's a travesty. And so I think you touched on it. The policies of this administration have been rigged for billionaires and corporations. While corporate shareholders are making record profits, Kansans are suffering, Americans are suffering. And as my commercial said, I won't have it, Mr. Barfield. And so I think we have got to, as U.S. senators, as Congress, as all three branches of government, as the judiciary, you touched on it. This administration is doing a number of unconstitutional things. They are really trying to expand the reach of presidential power in some ways that are unprecedented, in ways that present constitutional crises. The judiciary has at times stepped up, as you've referenced, but there have been other times when I think the judiciary has let this president go unchecked. But certainly, I can't control the judiciary. And I think it's vital that we have 3 separate branches of government. So I respect the judiciary. I would like the judiciary to be a better check on this, this attempted rise in presidential power that is unconstitutional. But let me tell you this, as a U.S. Senator, I have been disappointed with our leaders on both parties in Washington who have not done their obligation to the American public in Congress and in the U.S. Senate to have hearings on these matters, to check, to stop all of this presidential overreach. And I think that we've all got to, Republicans and Democrats, and we are seeing. I appreciate Senator Tom Tillis. I appreciate Congressman Thomas Massey. There have been a handful of Republicans who've said, time out, okay, Mr. President, what are you doing in Minneapolis? The role of law enforcement is not to kill innocent American citizens. And so there have been a handful of folks on the GOP side that have stepped out and said, enough is enough. We want to talk about the right thing. Obviously, Mr. Massey has said, is all of this a distraction from the Epstein files? You were told, Congress told you to release those files and you haven't. So we're seeing a ton of unchecked overreach by this president. I think it is the role of the U.S. Senate to get a handle on that. And as a U.S. Senator, I want to go and fight for Kansans and for Americans to make sure that all 3 branches of our government are working for the people, that we stop all this unconstitutional overreach, that we stop We talked about education. You've got an unqualified cabinet, right? Under the guise of doing a war on DEI or a war on whatever, it was really a war on qualified folks because now you filled a whole cabinet with a bunch of folks who the director of education was a WWE, entertainer who's now saying, let's defund education. What are you talking about? And so I just think, and I could point to so many different branches of government or layers of government where you have replaced constitutional systems and you have replaced people that have careers of nonpartisan service with partisan hacks that are intent on destroying the quality of life for Americans and for Kansans. And that's what, as a U.S. Senator, we've got to go fight against. And so we could talk. How much time do you have on this podcast, Mr. Barfield? We could talk for hours. Every single day, this administration is doing something that, again, I think conflicts with the values of 75 to 80% of Kansans and 75 to 80% of Americans who want a government that is not chaotic, a government that is not protecting pedophiles, that is not protecting a president that is doing constitutional overreach, that is focused on education, on economic opportunity, and on healthcare. Those are the things that our government should be focused on. And that's what I'm excited to bring the focus of the U.S. Senate back to benefit all Kansans and really to benefit all Americans. We know, Mr. Barfield, we're the heart of America. And as we go, the rest of this country goes. We produce agriculture, we produce airplanes, we produce healthcare innovations. Our economy in Kansas can and should be not only robust, but reflective of the broader American economy. And for the White House to unilaterally put tariffs, okay, tariffs are a tax. All right, let's just get that straight. Tariffs are a tax. And for the White House to unilaterally harm Kansas farmers with a tariff, our soybean and sorghum farmers could have had record years, Mr. Barfield. And for the president to sidestep the U.S. Senate and the Congress and to do that as himself, and more importantly, for Roger Marshal to not go and fight against that, I'm sorry, but your job is to fight for Kansans. That's what I plan to do in the U.S. Senate. And again, we could talk for hours about the level of overreach and the level of impropriety and the level of unconstitutionality that is happening in Washington, but not on our watch. So I appreciate you bringing me on to talk about this stuff. And these are the conversations that we're going to have for the next 282 days until that general election in November.
Well, before we go any further, let me remind, I don't think I have to remind you, but a lot of our viewers are not aware that Roger Marshal no longer resides or has a residency in Kansas.
That's crazy.
He is a resident of Florida. Now, here's a guy in the Senate, and this guy won't even come to Kansas to do a town hall meeting. He doesn't even talk to people that he claims to represent. How in the heck can you effectively represent somebody you don't talk to? And you mentioned about the farmers, and you mentioned about agriculture. Well, agriculture is almost a bad word anymore because of the fact that, like you say, our farmers are about to go bankrupt. And that's nationwide. These guys are all suffering because of the tariffs that have been put in place, and it only hurts the agricultural industry.
Yep.
And this idiot president wants us to believe that the people that he's putting the tariffs on are going to pay for the tariffs. Nothing could be further from the truth. And Roger Marshal, we go back to those people that are willing to stand up against this president. Roger Marshal is, tugging at his coattails every step of the way. And he throws us under the bus all of the time. So, you mentioned about a few people that are now coming forward, and a couple of names you didn't mention was Murkowski, Senator Murkowski, Senator, what's her name, from Maine. They have raised their voice in the last few days. Senator Cassidy, there are several others. And I think the closer we get to the midterms, you're going to find more people parting ways with this president because they can see the handwriting on the wall. And right now, if the election were held today, it would be a disaster for them, both on the Congress side and on the Senate side. So I think you're in at the right time, sir.
Yes,
And
sir.
I think, the wind is behind you. And I would like to say, the more power to you. And I want you to keep doing what you're doing. Now, I want to ask you this. You mentioned about term limits at the beginning here.
Yep.
And I think, and I don't know if you would agree with me, but I think those term limits should also apply to the Supreme Court, because this Supreme Court that we have now is making a mockery of our justice system. They
Right.
certainly are in the pockets of this president. And I think the biggest mistake that anybody could ever make in America is to give blanket immunity to a president to say that, hell, he can order the killing of one of his opponents
Yeah.
and nothing could be done about it.
Yeah,
And
that's
we just go
un-American.
downhill from there.
Blanket immunity is un-American. Everybody has to be accountable. On day one or year 100, everybody has to be accountable. And the fact that to suggest that there is blanket immunity is just crazy. I agree with you, Mr. Barfield.
And I'll say one more thing. And then they want to tell us that no man is above the law. Okay? I mean, give
Yep.
me a break. This
Yep.
is just ridiculous. But I want to get back now to you, and I want to talk about you said that right now the only one that's being attacked by the Republicans is yourself.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
I don't know where that's coming from, but I'm going to ask you, are you going to retaliate?
No, listen, Americans are tired of chaos and fighting. We want a government that is functional. We want normal people with good ideas to go to Washington and advocate for us. And all of this fighting and all of this chaos is a distraction from the economic grift that is going on, from the healthcare and education grift that is going on. And so we're going to rise above it. Our campaign, we had a good chuckle about the article. We took it as a badge of honor. The fact that the National Republican Senate Committee is scared of us. And we're, to your point, we're 45 days into this campaign, and I was on like the second week in the campaign. So they know that they've got a fighter for the people that is getting ready to give them a run for their money this November. To your point on, excuse me, the fact that our current senator is being run out of his own town halls. You know this. You've been in several rooms where I'm at. I will meet with anybody, anywhere to have these conversations. I love talking to folks that I agree with. I love talking to folks that I don't agree with, for that exchange of ideas, for us to see how can we work together to make this a more perfect union. And I'm fortunate to have grown up in a generation where I thought, based on the work of our civil rights pioneers, that this country was going the right way. And now to see us taking all of these steps backwards. In the last 20 minutes of this call, we've referenced all the ways that our country has gone backwards. And so I think it is vitally important that we focus on the issues at hand, that we will not get distracted by every bogus article or bogus claim, false news, misinformation, that we stay focused on 282 days from now, getting as many Kansans as we can out to vote, right? That's another thing we haven't talked about, but the attack on voting rights, right?
Yes.
For everything from gerrymandering mid-cycle to taking away the 3-day grace period on ballots, to all of the different things that this administration is trying to do to take our God-given American right to vote in this country away from us, Mr. Barfield. And so I am excited to stay focused on the issues, to stay focused on solutions for Kansans, not all this garbage and fighting and all of that. Again, that's a distraction that's benefiting the top 1% or 0.1% of people in this country who continue to rob all the rest of us. And everybody wants to make this about left versus right or Democrat versus Republican. This is all about a very small percentage of people at the top taking advantage of everyone else, whether that is billionaires and oligarchs and corporate shareholders that are making record profits while normal Americans are struggling, can't afford health care, can't afford our prescriptions, can't afford our housing. So those are the things that we're going to talk about. Let the National Republican Senate Committee talk smack on me all day long, because what does that do? That gets my name out. That means I'm living rent-free in their head, Mr. Barfield, and I love that. We're going to focus on the solutions that people want, and that's the kind of campaign that we lead, because that's our ethos. We lead with love. We lead with unity. I'm going to make this a great Kansas and a great America, especially for those who believe in me and who vote for me, but also for those who don't. And I think that is a core fundamental principle that we have that I do feel like unites us as Democrats. We care. And a lot of the things that I'm seeing take place across this country, like what we saw in Minneapolis, these come from a place of cruelty, from a place of inhumanity, from a place of distrust and just the lack of human kindness and decency that this president and this administration has taken us to. I mean, it blows my mind, Mr. Barfield, but we are not going to fight fire with that fire. We're going to fight it with love. We're going to fight it with unity. And most importantly, we're going to fight it with solutions. And I think that when 75, 80% of us agree on things and come together, we can do great things. And that's why I think we're gonna win in a landslide in November. And I think that's why 2 weeks into our campaign, the Republican Senate Committee is attacking me because they're scared shitless that American public is waking up, and our campaign is going to be the thing that wakes us up and really gets Kansans energized to go. If Roger wants to live in Florida, let him live in Florida. We'll send him there to retire permanently this November. So,
well, that's, it's funny because I was telling you about the person that asked me about who you were running against. And then I said, he's running to send Roger Marshal home permanently in Florida. So, yeah, that's nothing would sound better and suit me better than to give him a one-way ticket down there to Florida and let him stay there.
That's right.
Now, I want to tell you, you talk about, I think it's 104 counties in the state of Kansas.
105, yes, sir. Yes, sir. 105 counties, yes, sir.
Okay. And so at this point in time, how many of those would you say? And I know it's very early.
Yeah.
The primary is in August. You got plenty of time. But at this early stage, are you focusing on any one particular area of Kansas, or are you trying to cover all of Kansas as fast as you can? Or tell me what your plan is.
Yeah, no, we're going to cover Kansas, all of Kansas, as fast as we can. To your point, we've got 282 days. We are going to be in all 105 counties between now and the general election. We have just understanding we're a month into our campaign, 45 days into our campaign. We started with several key areas where we know, to your point, because there is a Democratic primary in August, we've got to galvanize as many voters for this primary as step one. And so, the 10 largest counties have really been a key focus getting out of the gates to make sure that we energize those voters. But make no mistake about it, we are going to be in all 105 counties. We are going to talk to Democrats, independents, and Republicans. I think that's one of the interesting things. As I've traveled this state, I spent a lot of time in Southeast Kansas over the last few weeks. Some great relationships that I've developed in Labette County and Crawford County, and I'll be in Neosho County next week. I'll be in Allen County tomorrow. A lot of these places voted for the current administration and even the current senator 2-1 or 3-1.
Mhm.
Yet as I go there, I kid you not, Mr. Barfield, 100% of the people that I meet are excited about my campaign. I walk into small business. I'll go through downtown. Was in downtown Parsons. Walked into a cool local shop called Bleacher Gear. I met with Dave. Dave was not overly political, but he said something has got to change. And Eric, I'm excited. You're the first politician or leader that's walked in here and talked to me and had ideas and had solutions. And gosh, I like you. I'm voting for you. And so those kinds of interactions I have had all over the state. And so I think that people from all parties and from all walks of life are frustrated with what's going on in Washington. They're frustrated that their U.S. senator doesn't represent them, and they're excited to see me. I was in Salina for MLK weekend. A lady was almost in tears and gave me a hug when I told her just what you said. I'm running against Roger Marshall. She said, I'm so excited to see you. And so old, young, rich, poor, Democrat, Republican, independent, everything from Southeast Kansas to Northwest Kansas. So far, we have seen folks are just universally excited about the opportunity to send better leadership. And so, yes, in these first 45 days, we spent a lot more time in the 10 largest counties. We're going to continue to expand that map. As I mentioned, I'll be in Allen County tomorrow. And so we're going to find ways to go and visit all 105 counties throughout the course of this campaign. But I'm excited with the amount of time that I've spent in Wichita, in Sedgwick with you. And we do know that in order to win a Democratic primary, we've really got to go and win places like Wichita and Sedgwick. And with your help, Mr. Barfield, I'm convinced that we're doing that. And the sooner we do that, it gives us an opportunity to get to every corner of the state and really talk to all Kansans. Because the problem I have, and I touched on it a minute ago, when you are elected to public office, it's got to be about the people that you serve. Okay. We talked about term limits. That seems like a no-brainer. We haven't really talked about, Congress people and senators trading stocks and going in. You go in as a pauper and you come out as a billionaire.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that happens when you're supposed to be in Washington serving the people. And so, we've called for a ban on stock trading and on making investments while you're in the U.S. Senate or in Congress with inside information. I also think that when the government shuts down and when everyday Americans, when air traffic controllers aren't getting paid, when our military's not getting paid, sure as hell when our teachers aren't getting paid, government officials should not be getting paid either. So the fact that people in Congress were making a check while Americans were suffering is not going to fly on my watch. And so these are the type of things that the majority of us in all 105 counties in Kansas can agree on. Sadly, our leaders are not leading that way, and that's the kind of leader that I intend to be. So that message resonates everywhere. Early in the campaign, we are in the larger cities, but the work of folks like you to get this message out, Mr. Barfield, gives us more time to go spend time in all of the 105 counties, and that's what we intend to do.
Well, you got my help. Anything that I can do,
I
I'm glad to
appreciate
do
you.
it. You know?
Wichita's been great. Sedgwick has been fantastic. I got to visit with Senator Faust-Godot, a leader, the first Black woman elected to the Kansas State Senate, and her leadership there for the last couple decades has been tremendous. She's a supporter in Wichita. State Rep Ford Carr, I got to visit with him. Most of your city council I've now met with. Christy Kirk, shout out to Christy, who heads Sedgwick County Dems. I had dinner with her. And I won't call names because I don't want to get my Republican friends in trouble, but even some Republicans in Wichita have been very supportive of me. That is the kind of coalition that we are going to build, Democrat, Independent, and Republican. It's the human being, the good human being, humanity coalition that wants Washington to fight for us and not for special interests and billionaires. And so Wichita's been great. The support that we've enjoyed there is really going to propel this campaign come August and again in November. And that gives us the latitude to go talk to Kansans across the state. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Okay. Now, one of the other things I want to talk about, one of the advantages when we talk about covering all these counties, you are a licensed pilot, and
Yes,
so you fly your own plane across these counties. But one thing I want to talk about that we haven't touched on enough is your business, uh, your businesses, and the what you're about. You said that you were a developer, and I think you're into real estate. And why don't you talk a little bit about that side of you?
Yeah, so I'm a businessman. I'm very fortunate that I parlayed my public education into a college scholarship, which then enabled me to go into business. So I've been in the real estate business for the last 20 years. Very fortunate because let's call it what it is. There are not many folks who look like me in that business. That business is pale, male, and stale largely, but it is getting better. And the work that we are doing to bring more young people and get them excited about the built environment. Sadly, Mr. Barfield, it's a very generational business. And so a lot of the folks that are in it because their dad's dad was in it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously building generational wealth, real estate, look at the tax code, right? Real estate is a very tax advantage way to build generational wealth. But true to the ethos of our campaign, we believe that should not be reserved for a handful of families. That should be democratized for the benefit of everyone and especially the benefit of communities. So we are not your average real estate developer. We are what we call a triple bottom line developer. What does that mean? Most businesses function on a single bottom line, generally profit.
Mm-hmm.
When we say we focus on a triple bottom line, Profit is always important. We are receiving investment from investors. They expect us to make a return on that investment. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called business. It would be a nonprofit or a charitable
Right,
endeavor.
right.
And like I said, I am a businessman, but we don't prioritize profit over the other two bottom lines, which are people and planet. And we believe that people, planet, and profit have to coexist, or there's a problem. If you are doing developments that are profitable, but they harm people or they harm the planet, that's not sustainable. If you're doing developments that uplift people, but they harm the planet or they're not profitable, in this system of capitalism, it's not sustainable, right? We can have lots of debates about other financial systems and all kinds of things. And it's great. I've got a 23-year-old daughter in college who wants to tell me, Dad, you're a capitalist and that's the root of all evil and da 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 da. Well, listen, honey, capitalism is the name of the game that is today. If there's a different game, you better learn how to play it. But America runs on money. And the best thing that we can do for our communities is find ways to share that economic opportunity with everyone and to use money for common good. I personally don't believe that money has to be the root of all evil. It is the hoarding of money and it is the greed of a handful of people with money that are giving capitalism and that are giving money such a bad name. In a country that runs on money, if we spent that money on healthcare, if we spent that money on education, if we spent that money on a more equitable economy, then everybody would feel a different way. But it is the resource hoarding and the greed of a handful of people at the top. So the beauty is I can say that from a position of experience, Mr. Barfield, because I've been in those rooms and I've done business with folks. I hate to say it, I've negotiated against guys like Donald Trump for the last 20 years, right? And so the reality is you have to understand that game and understand that system in order to be able to fundamentally change it. And so what I do is I use real estate development as a means to positively impact our community. We've done everything from build affordable housing, build workforce development programs, create reentry programs for formerly incarcerated individuals to come back into society. It kills me the hypocrisy of people who claim that they don't love this incarceration economy, yet they build systems of recidivism to keep people trapped in that economy. If you really practice what you preach, you will find ways to create economic opportunity. If somebody has a job, food on the table, and a roof over their head, they are far less likely to come and try to steal yours. And so we have got to create an economy that works for everyone. And we've done that in practice as real estate developers and as community impact focused real estate developers. And now I want to take that mindset of solutions to the U.S. Senate. And so we know that there's an affordability crisis. It's really simple, supply and demand. If we build more housing, then the cost of housing can come down. And listen, there's folks who feel a certain way about affordable housing or not affordable. Go back to supply and demand. Anytime you can increase the supply at any level of housing, even if you built just luxury housing, that would reduce the demand at all levels. And so you could actually, bring costs down. So building more housing has got to be a key. And then creating opportunities for better jobs, better wage growth. So you tackle the cost side of that equation and you tackle the revenue side of that equation, increase people's wages, increase their standard of living, decrease their costs, build more supply. These are very basic business principles that, again, our leaders in Washington are too busy fighting over this, that, and the other, protecting pedophiles and doing God knows what else, instead of just doing the work of the American people, Mr. Barfield. So that's the campaign that we're running. And that's the business mindset that I bring to solving challenges for communities and for people, not just for billionaires and for special interests.
Okay. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your interest, and I guess you and I guess a partner, or maybe a couple of partners, are focused there in Wyandotte with redeveloping land that was once Indian Hills Shopping Center, which
Yes,
was
sir.
probably the biggest retail center in the city of
Yeah.
Kansas City, Kansas, and in Wyandotte County at one time.
Yes,
I
sir.
used to go there myself every time I went to Kansas City, and I was just amazed at. I mean, I know that center had a Dillard's
Oh
anchor at
yeah,
one end, a J.C. Penney on the other end, and
McHenry
several
Ward.
smaller
Yep.
stuff. Yeah, I
Hmm.
remember that, but it's
Yep.
been demolished now.
Yeah.
But you're in the process of redeveloping that land,
Yes,
and
sir.
can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, sir. So Indian Springs Shopping Center, as a kid growing up in KCK, I would frequent that shopping center. You mentioned all the anchors. Harold Penner. Everybody knew Harold Penner was where they
Yes,
went to
yes.
get outfitted for prom and homecoming. Orange Julius, Italian Delight. I mean, all of the businesses that we loved and the economic engine that was that shopping center. The sad reality, like many enclosed malls in the 90s and early 2000s, you had both the realities of crime, the perception of crime. You had a phenomenon away from enclosed malls into these outdoor lifestyle centers. So a number of influences convene to basically make that shopping center no longer viable. It is located, though, at Main and Main at I-635 and I-70. So
Mhm.
basically, where I-35, I-29, and I-70 connect, you could go north, south, all the way from Mexico to Canada, east, west, from coast to coast on the highways that touch that mall. And so, from a real estate perspective of location, 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 you cannot beat that location, which is why you'll often hear me say it is a travesty of disinvestment by our local, state, and federal government to have sites like that in the east sides of communities all over this country that are disinvested, forgotten about, torn down, and sitting there vacant. So that site is on the east side of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. I'm passionate about that. You go to East St. Louis, the Grosse Pointe Gate in Detroit, East Chicago, East Oakland, East anywhere you go, there is a mall like that. I was in Columbus, Ohio, in East Columbus last year, meeting with their city about a similar thing. So the reality is that we have these areas of our cities that are at prime locations, great land, great infrastructure that have just been forgotten about in this era of suburban sprawl. And we keep building, new roads way out further and new malls way out further. And we've really forgotten to reinvest in our urban core, just like we've forgotten to reinvest in our rural core in a lot of these places. And so I think that a lot of this suburban sprawl has taken resources from our urban and our rural communities, and we're focused on bringing those resources back. So yes, we are redeveloping the Indian Springs Shopping Center. We've got 2,000 units of housing planned. 50% of that housing is slated to be affordable for folks making 60 to 80% of the median income. So these are our essential workers, our healthcare workers, our teachers, our firefighters, folks that we really need to have this vibrant economy. Also, though, our creatives and our startup founders and our innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem folks. If you're in the early stages of starting a company, talk about minimum wage. When you're the founder, you might be making no wage as you're trying to get your company off the ground, but we need those small businesses and entrepreneurs and creatives to do what they do and still have access to affordable housing and resources. So 2,000 units of very high quality, net zero. Talk more about that if you want in a second. This is basically hooked up to its own 20 megawatt solar microgrid. So everybody also hates their utility bill. Well, guess what? No electric bill in this project because the sun is providing that power using federal policy. So something that I understand, how do we make these policies work to benefit our communities and not billionaires? We can use federal policy around investment tax credits to build a solar microgrid that returns capital to the investors, returns free energy to the community, eliminates the utility bill, reduces the cost of housing. When I say I have an affordability agenda, Mr. Barfield, it's not just a plan. What does the GOP keep saying about healthcare? Oh, we've got a plan. We'll release it later. We'll think about it maybe. No, I have specific policy ideas that we can use to leverage lowering costs. So hooking up affordable housing by way of a low-income housing tax credit to a solar microgrid by way of an investment tax credit and building all of that in the one thing. I shouldn't say the one thing, but right now it feels like the only thing I can agree with President Trump on is opportunity zones. And I do want to give this administration credit. And we can talk more about opportunity zones because they have been used against communities like ours. So I understand when people have a visceral reaction to opportunity zones. But remember what I said. You had to get inside the game and learn how the game works in order to flip it on its head to benefit our communities. So the same way that opportunity zones have it felt like been used against us, we have an opportunity. They're now part of the permanent tax code. Whether you like them or not, they are here to stay. Those maps are being redrawn this summer, Mr. Barfield. And I want to make sure that communities like ours understand that we can use this tool to get investment, to build more affordable housing. What we're doing with it, to build a solar microgrid. The third part of that, again, workforce development. We have partnered with Keystone Innovation. They run a very successful innovation, entrepreneurship, workforce development district in Kansas City, Missouri. I sit on the board of that organization with Chancellor Doug Girard at KU, and he says, I want this kind of innovation in Kansas. Lawrence has an innovation center. Kansas City, Kansas deserves an innovation center. So we are partnering with Keystone to anchor them at this Indian Springs site. So what did you just hear? We have housing, we have restaurants and retails and amenities, small business creation, creative economy. We also have innovation and entrepreneurship. So all of these things combined are going to make this a livable, walkable, high quality of life neighborhood. And to be able to do that, you can see I'm like passionate about it. To be able to do that in the city that I grew up in the state that I love, in a community that I love, we hope that that will be a blueprint for how we can do this type of development all across Kansas and all across the country. But again, you have to start with the fundamental idea that you're going to benefit everyone. And the leaders that we have now are only benefiting their corporations and their special interests and their billionaire buddies. And what we do is we use these systems and these policies and state, federal, and local unity to benefit the people, not to benefit outsiders and corporations and others. And I think that's a very important distinction in our campaign. We all have to work in the playing field that we've got, right? Whether you like the OBBBA or not, it is here. And my community is sick of excuses. I mean, that's one of the other things we talk about at Indian Springs. That site's been vacant for 20 years. We're now the fifth or sixth developer that's tried to do it. We are going to get that done, or I'm going to die trying, Mr. Barfield, because I've made that commitment to my community. But we now need local, state, and federal government to align the policies that'll enable it to happen. And it is our knowledge, my knowledge of how these systems work and how to make them work for us and how to make them work for our community is why I'm asking you to vote for me in the U.S. Senate. These are not just abstract ideas. These are not just wishful thinking. I have built a career on positively impacting communities through this understanding of how federal policy works. And that's, I guess, the question you asked earlier. Why the U.S. Senate for a first-time politician, right? Why not run for mayor? I love Kansas City, Kansas, my hometown. But being the mayor of KCK is probably the most difficult job in the world. God bless Crystal Watson. We just elected our first Black woman mayor. But in a $400+ million budget, you might have $5 to $10 million of discretion in where that money goes. That money is all tied to debt service payments. It's tied to incentives that have been given away to projects years before. The ability to drive hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure investment that our communities need does not reside with that mayor or any mayor, right? At a local level, one of the reasons that property taxes are so high and residents are so pissed off, rightfully so, is that their infrastructure has not been invested in to the level that it should be by our federal and state government. If the federal government were fixing the bridges that we have in Wyandotte County right now that are closed, I want to give a shout out to the governor. The governor just announced $135 million of funding for the Central Avenue Bridge. Better late than never, so I applaud the governor. But the fact that that bridge has been able to fall into the level of disrepair that it has, what is the economic impact of that on our community over decades? And so the failure of the federal government since Eisenhower to invest in our infrastructure, the failure of the state government to come in and do that in a meaningful way, whether we're talking about the overpass at Wichita State University in Wichita or the Central Avenue Bridge in KCK. See, Mr. Barfield, I could go all around this great state and talk about the failures of the federal government to invest in infrastructure at a level that our community needs, passing that burden down to local taxpayers. And so, yes, when we need water, we need sewers, we need roads repaired, our local residents have had to bear the brunt of that because we have not had anybody in Washington fighting for us. And so that's what I intend to do. I intend to go to Washington, fight for us, bring federal dollars into all of our communities and all of our 105 counties across Kansas. And once we do that, we can have better infrastructure, better quality of life, and reduce that burden on Kansas taxpayers. I think that is the goal. And let's face it, everybody wants to feel a certain way about earmarks and appropriations. That everywhere else is doing it. GOP folks will malign it right up until the money shows up and they take it back to their districts and they don't spend it equitably, across our states and across our country. And so we just have to understand that the role of the federal government is to provide for that basic infrastructure around economy, healthcare, and education. And the sooner we go get them to invest in that, that's another part of our affordability agenda to bring the cost down, things like property taxes in our communities. So very passionate about this, as you see. Let me take a deep breath and see if you got another question. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going because these are the solutions we need to fix our communities.
I can see and basically I can feel the passion. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now I got a couple of more topics that I want to talk with you. I want you to address. And number one, I want to talk about your personal life. I want you to talk about your family.
Yes, sir. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I've been married for 18 years. I met my wife at the University of Southern California. And so everybody says, Erik, how did you convince a girl from Long Beach to move to Kansas? I say, guys, I'm clearly good at sales. I was very good at my job. And so, yeah, having grown up here in Kansas City, went to college at USC in Los Angeles, California, actually got a degree in public health from the School of Medicine there, met my wife there. We met in 2000. So 26 years ago, met my wife at USC in Los Angeles, convinced her to move back to Kansas City with me in 2005. And so we lived in Overland Park. So most of our kids were born and raised there. I've got 4 children, Mr. Barfield, 3 daughters and a son. One cool fact is, so I graduated from Sumner Academy Public High School in KCK in 2000. My mother graduated from Sumner when it was an all-black high school, right? So pre-desegregating our schools, when Sumner was still an all-black high school, the Sumner Spartans, back in 1967, my mother graduated from there. And today, I have a sophomore and a freshman, my son and daughter. They're going to hate saying this because they're like, Dad, politics is so uncool and don't tell anybody that you're, so I get it, right? These kids, I mean, we can have a whole nother conversation on the need for us to engage our youth and our young people in the political process. What's the saying? If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Yeah. And these kids are not at the table, and their future is on the menu. And so fortunately, I have 4 kids, and I get to have these conversations with them. Hopefully, they have these conversations with their friends. But yeah, it's really cool that my 2 youngest are now 3rd generation at this amazing public high school. I got to stop bragging about it because people feel a certain way when I'm like, I went to the #1 public school in the state of Kansas. But it just goes to show the value that I place on public education. And I think I also place a high value on expectations. One thing that my mom told me, you asked me about my personal life. I'm very fortunate. My mother, Linda Murray, was a school teacher, school counselor, school principal, and then administrative officer in our public school district. She was responsible for hiring teachers. And so it's a very difficult thing, especially now more than ever, to go out and hire teachers. But she said, you have to be intentional about it. And failure is not an option. And so that's one of the things that she said to me, son, you're going to have to work twice as hard. You're going to have to be twice as good. failure is not an option. So I've carried that with me. My father was also a city worker, worked for our government for 30 years, was in economic development and planning, community development. At one point in time, I think he ran all of those departments in our community. And so the ethos that I have for public service, for giving back to our community, for building things in our community, and the passion that I have around education comes from those two folks. And now I'm fortunate to be third generation Kansan, raising the fourth generation here in Kansas City, Kansas, and they go to the same school that I did. So the other cool thing, Mr. Barfield, because I started young. My wife and I had our kids young. I'm 44 years old, and I've got a 23-year-old, a 19-year-old, a 16, and a 15. I've got buddies that are still got 1, 3, 5-year-old babies at home. And I remember those days, right? That's a lot of work, changing diapers, running to all the practices. I do not miss those days. Now when we get like I've got nieces and nephews that are younger, I get to babysit them, get my baby fix, and then pass them back to their parents, right? But it does give me, where I'm going with this, Mr. Barfield, is that I feel like I am at what I'll call the Goldilocks zone for what I want to do. If my children were younger and if my family was younger, my wife would probably not be as supportive as she is.
Sure.
But the fact that I've got 2 in college, that I've got 2 in high school, I have the energy and the passion because I'm young enough, but I have enough experience for my 20 years of operating in the real world. And my babies are grown now, so I get to see firsthand what they're going through. A 23-year-old daughter who says, Dad, I don't know, you had the American dream. I feel like I had the last taste of the American dream. We bought our first house at 127th and Flum in Overland Park when we were 25 years old, Mr. Barfield. And I have a 23-year-old daughter who says, Dad, my friends, we don't even think about that, right? What happened to the American dream for these kids, the social contract that we have promised our youth that, I hate to say it, old men in Washington are destroying? Like, let's just keep it real. And so the ability to be this close, I'm kind of in a tweener. You see, I got this gray hair coming in. So I think I'm still a young man. My kids tell me I'm an old man. My elders tell me I'm still youngish. I'm in this perfect place to have both the energy and the experience and the time and the support of my family to be able to go and really do this. So I expect that to resonate with voters. So far, it has been. And yeah, I think that in 282 days, we are going to make history by flipping this U.S. Senate seat and taking a compassionate leader for the people that's going to lead with kindness and decency and humanity, taking that ethos to Washington for the benefit of Kansans. So I appreciate you asking.
Okay. Now we're getting down to the end here, but I want to ask here, this is very important. At the bottom of the screen here, it says join the campaign. How can people do that?
Yeah, great. All kinds of ways. So sign up there to volunteer. As we, unlike you mentioned that Ronald Reagan was a first-time politician, but Ronald Reagan was also an actor and had a lot of name recognition, right? You see Erik Murray there on the screen. Fortunately, easy to say, easy to spell. Erik with a K. The K is for Kansas. So as I get in front of more folks, I think it's resonating, but we've got to get my name out. We've got to get our message out. We've got to get our leadership of love and unity out. So volunteering in all 105 counties to spread this message, I think, is going to be key. That's number one. Yes, campaigns do run on donations. We have not taken any PAC money. We are not going to take any of this misaligned corporate special interest money. We are only going to have a campaign that is funded by people that love me and love our beliefs, and by those out there that really want to see change in our country, change in Washington, and change in Kansas. So if you're able, donate. I think we need to end Citizens United. People tell me that this race, Barbara Boyer spent $30 million, $29 million trying to win this race. I hope to spend a fraction of that. That's not to say that we can't raise it. In the first 30 days of this campaign, we are outraising every other candidate, including some gubernatorial candidates that have been in this race. So if you look at our month-over-month fundraising and you compare it to any other candidate, we're outraising. So we have the ability to raise money, Mr. Barfield, I will bring that to bear if I have to. But the reality is we should not need to spend $30 million on an election. That money would be better spent on healthcare and education and other things, but it will take some money to get the word out. And so we are, taking donations at our website for this people-powered campaign. We have had donations from all over the state and from all over the country, as small as $1 up to the $7,000 maximum. We've had hundreds of donors from small towns in Kansas to small towns all over the U.S. to large cities. I mean, everybody is part of powering this campaign. So volunteer, donate, spread the word, help us get this message of unity, prosperity, healthcare, and education out to as many folks as we can. We have 282 days till the general election, and we're going to beat Roger Marshal. And so there's two ways to win an election. I'll leave you with this. Pretty soon you're going to have to just cut me off, Mr. Barfield, because I'll keep talking all day. Two ways to win an election. The first, and my preference, is people have to love you. And the more people that we get in front of and share this message, we are feeling that love. I think they are feeling the love that I give, and they are giving it back to us. I kid you not, Mr. Barfield, 100%. I expected somewhere along the way, somebody would take my card and throw it on the ground and say, no, I like Roger Marshal. Nobody has said that. So that's the second way that you can win an election, is they just don't like the other guy. Now, don't get me wrong. I want to win this on my merits. I want people to hear about our focus on economic opportunity, which means affordability and wage growth, on healthcare, on education. I want people to see in me the kind of leader that they want. So I'm hoping it's the first one, but the second one can also be true. And that is, I'm running against someone who has not upheld his Hippocratic oath, much less his oath to the people in Kansas. And I think the combination of those two things are why we're going to win 282 days from now. But we need volunteers to spread that message. So go to ericforkansas.com, Erik with a K, forkansas.com. Sign up to volunteer, donate if you're able. Let's go do this together.
Okay, listen, I'm sorry. I've got an audio. I was trying to get on the screen the donation sign part of that advertising you did, but I've got some audio interference. So we're gonna have to bring this to a close. It's a pleasure having you. I enjoy it, sir. Keep doing what you're doing, and hey, it's a thumbs up. Okay. Now we're gonna do this again after the primary. We'll do this again. Okay.
I love it.
Thank you for coming and taking part of your busy day out for my audience.
Mr. Barfield, last thing, I'll be in Wichita February 12th and 13th. I was trying to get the team to stay for Valentine's Day on February 14th because Wichita loves me. I love Wichita, but I will be there. So for all your listeners in Wichita, make sure to keep an eye out on our page. Sign up for one of our events, the 12th and 13th. We've got some really cool stuff planned in Wichita. I want to end with a shout out to a woman that sadly I did not know her as well as I would have liked while she was alive. I have developed a relationship with her son, Dr. Val Brown, but let's make sure that we take a moment and remember Miss Josephine Brown, Brown, what she meant to the Wichita community, what she meant to this great state. The first Black woman elected to the Board of Education, and what she has done for our community. Sadly, she passed, but one of these events is going to be a tribute to Miss Jo Brown and what she meant, and that's the kind of leadership that I want to bring. So I want to thank her. I want to thank Val Brown. I want to thank you, Mr. Barfield. I will see you in Wichita in 2 weeks, sir.
Keep me informed, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Have a good day, sir.
All right, you too. We'll see you later.
It would be 10 out of 10, except for the drive.
Okay, folks, that's our show for today, and we'll see you next time.
I think it's bound to happen when you have open, clear roads, which is the 9 out of 10 part at the sort of peak of this.